want to talk about this for a couple of days, but I have been busy because A, Super Bowl, and B, just stuff's been going on, so I haven't had time. But I have genuinely wanted to talk to you about this because I've got some thoughts. And, you know, I've seen other people talking about it, other creators, and, people that do streaming, just any people online that have different opinions. But again, as one of the straight white guys that does this, I probably get a different audience. So I figure I'll, throw this out there if anybody wants this opinion. If you don't want an opinion, you can just leave. I'll start with this. I have lots of things over the course of my life that I've outgrown because of some sort of problem with them, right? Easiest one is Chappelle. I'm a humongous Dave Chappelle fan. Went to school. I was in high school from 2004 to 2007. It was everybody's favorite thing. Like, it was, and I genuinely believe it's one of the best sketch shows ever made. It's super memorable. If you weren't there for it, people were quoting this everywhere, right? I've seen all Chappelle specials, at least stand-up special, at least, the ones besides the recent ones. This is a true story. The day I got laid off from one of my jobs, I bought a ticket to a Dave Chappelle comedy show with like Hannibal Buress. It was a solid show. And Dave did his thing. It was his usual bit. And at the end, because it was like in a small restaurant, he was leaving, and I managed to just get up to him, give him a high five, like a hug, kind of one of those as he was leaving. And it was, for a long time, like one of the highlights, one of the coolest things I'd ever done. Because I really thought he was funny. And I didn't, not to be fair, but in general, with characters like this, right? We talk about Joe, J.K. Rowling, and Dave Chappelle and his body of work. There's a lot of things they say that hold up, right? Dave Chappelle used to do so many jokes about police brutality, stuff like that are solid, rock solid. Like, they could come out today and they'd be funny and relevant. So there's some things that, you'll think about. It's like, oh, right, that was a Dave Chappelle bit. And, it was great. It was very smart. The other comedian who really, one of my favorites was Louis C.K. Could not get over, and I mean, again, one of the biggest comedians at the time. So funny. And by so funny, I mean, so widely, so popular. And I thought some of the stuff they did was good at being a stand-up comedian. But obviously now Chappelle's had a much more kind of tumultuous. They've been kind of doing a lot of weird things that make you not want to be a fan of theirs over time, more gradually. Whereas with Louis C.K., it was like, oh, I get it, we're done with him, and I think that's fine. Every so often I will quote one of them, a joke of theirs, but I will say something to the effect of, a comic who I can't remember the name of had this joke once. That's, kind of what you do with that. I would not go see him live again or watch any of their stand-up specials. Also, my favorite movie probably ever made, X-Men 2, is directed by someone with a lot of skeletons in their closet. Like, there's a lot of stuff going on in their history. I don't want to get into all of it. It's very complicated. But that is a person who still is responsible for one of my favorite movies and my favorite series of movies. And I think it gets a little more complicated than that, because that is a big body of work with a lot of people attached to it. So like, you can watch those movies and sit a little bit further away from their directorial choices, let's say. But I just want to put this out there because I do not care about Harry Potter. I've seen all the movies, the Fantastic Beasts movies and the regular ones for my podcast, mostly nitpicking, because they are insane. Like, the world building is wild because it's just so scattershot. There's so many concepts that are thrown in randomly. There's a potion you could take that just makes you win stuff all the time. And there are many life and death situations where characters do end up dying. And it's like, well, why aren't you taking that liquid potion thing, that liquid luck, I think is what it's called, that makes you really good at stuff? And it's like, well, it might turn you crazy. I know, but you're going to die. This is Wizard War, dude. All bets are off. But anyway, there's that. There's the time machine. There's love potions. It's an insane universe. It's very fun to nitpick. And the movies make less sense as they go on. I had not read the books. I was not like dragged, but I went along to some of the movie premieres, the same way that I think some friends of mine have come along to watch Iron Man 3 at midnight or whatever. But, I've been there for it. Plenty of people in my life love Harry Potter. I totally get it. It is very X-Men in that sense, right? Like, it is another thing where, oh, you're a special little kid and you should go to the special school full of special kids that aren't kind of misunderstood like you. And, it's all great and all the stuff you ever wanted was there. It's cool. It's a fun premise. I understand why kids like it. And adults, too. It's fun. There's nothing wrong with having fun. But yeah, I said that other stuff just to say, I don't think I'm perfect. I don't think all the things that I like. And I'm sure there will be more as time goes on that I will have to kind of give up or be like, oh, God, all right, well, we're done with them. Joss Whedon, another one. Love the Avengers movies. I've just used the Iron Man movie as an example, but like the first two Avengers, well, the first one is great. And it's a lot of it is because that's more than the X-Men director, something where it's like that has their personal stamp on it, right? Like the style of dialogue is a thing that I do not tire of, which I know some people have, really low tolerance for, but I don't. But like stuff like that, kind of go, well, I guess that's another thing Daniel Radcliffe wrote, It's crazy that he wrote all those Harry Potter books and at the same time directed the Avengers movies and Firefly. That's pretty insane that he's had that time, to do that. But he's just that talented. He's just that good of a guy. But I say all that because I think there's a debate going on over whether people should play the Harry Potter game. I think it's called Wizard Hogwarts Extreme Legacy. It's like Hogwarts Legacy, right? Or something like that. I don't know. I haven't played it. I've seen like maybe 2 trailers and I've read quite a few articles about it because listen, getting rid of all the, trans stuff. Let's put that in a box right now. It is wild to me that one of the only things we all kind of agreed on about that franchise, as far as like things that were weird about it back in the day, were the way they characterized goblins, right? Everybody, like, not everybody, but a lot of people that watched it independently of each other went, so this feels a little anti-Semitic, right? And we all knew that. Jon Stewart just kind of said that maybe a year ago on his podcast, and he's like, this is weird that this is a thing. And we all kind of knew that. Otherwise, there were some fantasy things that they didn't do super well. The Irish kid was named after, or he always exploded things, like, like the IRA. Like, there's connections there that aren't great. I mean, Kingsley Shacklebolt is insane. I did not know that was that guy's name. The dude who says Dumbledore's got style, that guy. Anyway, it's wild that knowing all of that, right? This discourse has been going on for a decade, right? The last one came out in 2012 was the first movie, or the last movie in the first group came out, I think. This has been going on for a decade, and then they made a new game, and the bad guy is a goblin who does evil magic. And like, come on, you guys. I mean, I'm not saying this is anti-Semitic, choosing to have him be the bad guy, or this is some deliberate attack. But I am saying, if what happened with the first couple of books happened, you gotta just have it on a whiteboard somewhere. Don't make goblins bad guys. Just don't do it. Especially don't make them do an uprising as some sort of underclass who gets like mistreated and the wizards don't let him do magic and then they try to revolt and you have to beat them. And I get it, the bad guy is the bad guy and there's probably some good goblins too, I'm sure. But just this idea that like they took all the things everyone's ever said about goblins and go, I think we should still make the goblin a bad guy in the next one. I think people are really going to love that. There's so many fantasy people and races and whatever they really barely touched. There's a whole bunch of centaurs just kicking around. There's giant spiders. Like, I don't understand it. And I would understand if anybody was just like, listen, I don't want to play that game because it's got weird anti-Semitic undertones. Completely get. But you take the trans part. Let's bring that back in here. Because this is the argument, right? You got people streaming this game or playing this game that are getting some criticism from people in their communities, like people that watch the streamers or friends of theirs or something. And the people that would criticize them will say, hey, it's weird that you're playing this game because the creator's real transphobic and, you're playing this game just kind of like an endorsement, or through platforming, you're talking about it. You could just ignore it. There's no reason you have to play it, but you are. And I don't like that, right? I'm sure there have been people that have been more extreme with that language, and like threats are bad. And like, yelling at people is probably not like insanely productive. Just kind of call names. I don't know. Like, don't do bad things. But like in terms of this discourse, which is where are we on it, right? What's right? I do think it's hard to have this conversation about Harry Potter because it is so unlike any other piece of media, right? I was just thinking about this. I was trying to think of a good example or like an analogy, right? Like, what if Stanley did the things that J.K. Rowling did? Would I quit Marvel? The same way that like I expect some people would quit Harry Potter. And it doesn't work that way because Stanley's dead, so they're not doing them anymore. So it is easier to say, well, they're detached from the brand in a way that's like, you're not handing him money by buying his game. But then second, they were products of their time. So if this was something you dug up from the 80s, you would kind of assume, based on their philosophy about diversity and inclusion and stuff, and this is just Stanley as an example, but you would assume there would be a reflection on that in the present day, and they would change their opinion to something more progressive and something more widely accepted and something that's more reflective of what you like about the comics and stuff, right? Like, you like that these comics are diverse. So you go back, and I'm not saying there is any version of this in Stanley's history, just an example. You would expect that their views would have changed. The difference is, Joe is very much alive and very much in control of this brand, right? I don't know exactly what the details are in terms of how much, control she has over every individual decision, but I mean, there's definitely no single person that financially benefits more from the sale of this video game than her. And on the other side of it, I think she could walk into that studio and I would bet she has veto power over anything in that game. Like, if the main character used a spell that she didn't like, she could walk in the room and say, they're actually not using that spell. We're not going to have them do that because I don't want that. I don't think that is right with my brand, right? That she has a very solid amount of control in a way that like someone like Stanley right now obviously doesn't. Now then B, the other thing that's important, she's still out there, and it's not just that like she'll still tweet transphobic stuff. She's like the president of transphobia. She wants to get the high score. It's all she talks about. She will go on Twitter, search her own name, find people that are talking about her, and get in those conversations, which is a weird thing to do if you have $1 billion and you just waste your time doing the things that like I would do. Because I would assume everybody has those conversations like, what would you do with $1 billion? And it's like, well, I don't know. I'd go on vacation. No, you'd sit down and name search yourself and get in dumb arguments online. Like, I don't know what it is with the billionaires, her and Elon, or just do this for fun. Maybe it really is just this void that sucks everyone and everything in, regardless of how much money you have. You can't get out of it. And in that case, it's bad. You shouldn't do it. No one should be on Twitter getting in fights with people. It's not productive generally. It's very not productive if you have $1 billion. But this is all to say, I do not think you can, the same way as with any other creator, separate the Harry Potter brand from J.K. Rowling, and I don't think you can separate J.K. Rowling from transphobia. And listen, if you're not on board with trans issues, trans rights, stuff like that, then I don't know what to tell you. I'm not going to be able to convince you probably in this video that you should be. I would definitely look into it, but this is more of an argument for the people that are on board with that have trans friends, maybe family members that think about this stuff and go, what should I be doing? That's the audience, I think, for this right now. And I think it's hard to deny. I don't think anyone would deny that J.K. Rowling really does seem to be really leaned into this transphobia thing. Like, it is her favorite thing. And if you don't believe me, Sean, on YouTuber, has a video about J.K. Rowling just being friends with and supporting and representing all these transphobic views. So I don't think it's possible to separate her from that. The same way, like, it wouldn't be possible to, like, separate, like, Spike Lee from the Knicks. It's just like, besides the thing they're known for, it's what they're known for. It's like that. The same way, it would be impossible to separate James Cameron from getting in the ocean, finding weird stuff in the ocean. You know, it's just like their favorite thing outside of the media they're responsible for that we all, got to know him for. But I genuinely believe if she wasn't a big time author, if she was just like, working at a coffee shop or something, she would still be into this transphobia stuff. Like, it does seem like it's just something she loves. But anyway, and speaking of transphobia, another fellow I'm not a huge fan of that I used to be a big fan of, Ricky Gervais. I don't know what it is with all these British people, but man, I used to think they were very funny, and I do. There's still some things jokes that they have about like the Bible and stuff that I think are fun. But for the most part, they're another one who have had to go, all right, well, I guess we're done with you because you're really hitting that weird moment where you start to kind of just make all your comedy bits are about how you're canceled and everybody's too woke, and it's not good. It's very sad to watch a lot of your favorite comedians fall into that same, vacuum, like just get sucked into this same weird, boring mindset. Like, even if the jokes were funny, I would get it. I would be like, well, listen, this is their lived experience and they're still making good, but it's always the same couple of jokes. It's never funny. I mean, obviously, I've talked about this. I'll talk about this on Twitter. Obviously, I talk about this on my podcast, Mostly Nitpicking. I watch Bill Maher every week because I think he is fascinating. It is fascinating watching an aging hipster go out of sync with everybody else in their party and kind of, by accident or maybe less than accident, start picking up the beliefs of other people on the right. Then they like kind of have deluded themselves into thinking what they're talking about is actually the normal thing. Everybody else is crazy. Fascinating. Also, just like a good panel show. We don't have enough panel shows in TV in America. That's a thing British people do better. They do transphobia worse, but they do panel shows better. So, nobody's perfect. But the idea is, if you have this Harry Potter game, right? Let's say you are a fan of Harry Potter and the game comes out. It gets great reviews, even though it does not look that fun. But hey, I play the Avengers games still. So I'm not a good judge of character for this sort of thing. But if you make, content online, streaming games, there is, I understand, a incentive to play this game that everybody is talking about, especially since it's a narrative-driven game. So it's like people will want to watch you stream it so they can see the story and experience the game in that way. Should you be doing that, though? And are you being a good ally by doing that? I think it comes down to this, right? I've been trying to come up with an analogy for this. Like I said, it's really hard to separate J.K. Rowling from the transphobia. But I did think about this in terms of movies and stuff like that. Like, if you were an Avenger and Thanos hated you, killed one of your friends, he was an enemy, right? Like, you and Thanos had beef. And Thanos just, looked for you. He went and between Infinity Stones, he would just go yell at you. So, it's weird that he does that, but that is what they do. It would be weird if you and your friend wanted to get ice cream and your friend suggested the Infinity Cones ice cream shop from Thor 4 because they know how much you don't like it. And they know how personal this is, clearly. And I don't think this works with a lot of people because it's pretty hard to find someone who is going so, aggressively against something in a way that's pretty gross. Beyond the trans issues, a lot of these people she's aligning herself with are very just anti-gay rights and stuff like that. It's weird. And that makes sense. You got to find some allies. And you're not going to find them on this side, so you can find them on that side. And then, those are the ones you're going to get. But I guess what I'm saying is, if you did that, you would not seem like a good friend, right? I think if you played Harry Potter game by yourself and didn't talk about it, didn't advertise it, nobody really cares. I'm sure there are things like that I do or watch and stuff like that. Things that I'm not, well, I don't know. I do try to like kind of keep it. I mean, I watch Seinfeld and he's weird. And obviously one of them was really racist. Although, you know, he apologized, whereas Joe does not want to apologize. She has decided this is her brand. If like Michael Richards just made that his whole deal forever, I do think I'd have a lot more of an issue with it. But the idea that like if someone I know hated Jerry Seinfeld because of a personal thing, or hated Michael Richards because of a personal thing, it would be weird if I invited them over to my house to watch some Seinfeld, right? And that's what streaming is. You're inviting people into your space to enjoy some media, some art. And I would understand if I had a computer that only played Harry Potter game, but there's a lot of other games. And I've heard people suggest play games made by trans creators. That's a great idea. But also just play anything. You know, there's so many other games. And while the Harry Potter game is like more popular now, I don't think it's going to stay that way. Like, I don't think this is like a switch to Fortnite where it's like, oh, if I don't do this, my channel takes forever. I understand the argument that creators will make that it's like you do have to chase trends because the margins are thin and you're not making a ton of money. So you want to, you know, you got to make rent and you want to play this game. However, I think if you're going to do that, you got to be cool with the backlash. You have to understand that there's a lot of fans of yours who see you playing this game made by a team of people based on the works of a woman who goes online and yells at people on Twitter in her spare time and also organizes against them. And, you know, like I said, has become the president of transphobia, or prime minister, I guess. He's British. You have to understand that like the people that care about that aren't going to like it. And they say, I wish you weren't playing that game. I don't think it's unreasonable for them to have that opinion. Like if I was inviting a trans friend over for game night and like, what are we playing? The Harry Potter game. That would be weird, right? Just like as a base thing. I think that would be strange unless they asked for it. And I'll acknowledge, you know, it's not a monolith. There's people that are trans that have positive opinion of Harry Potter still and would play the games and don't have a problem with it. I'm sure that is true. However, in terms of the trans people that I follow on Twitter, the creators, the overwhelming understanding is that Joe is not cool and the Harry Potter stuff just doesn't work anymore for that reason. And I mean, just like by me looking at this franchise and seeing that the main person in charge of it, like the George R.R. Martin of it, is also very bad about trans issues. Like I can use logic to assume that's probably not good for if a trans friend's over. I'm not going to play that game. I'm not going to talk about Harry Potter. I guess it's like if somebody, you know, it's like Elon, right? I understand people that already own Teslas. They've owned them for years and love them. I pray for you. I hope the car doesn't explode. But even if you know all of his nonsense now, and you have a friend who he harasses on Twitter, or you know, just makes an example of in a way that's like, dude, what are you doing? And you know, your friend hates Elon. Elon hates your friend. It's weird if you buy a Tesla after that. And it's especially weird if you're excited and you're showing it off to your friends. Look at me and my brand new Tesla. Wow, this is cool. Like it is seen as it's kind of an endorsement of Elon. And I have seen people on the other side of it that are anti-trans saying, like transphobic people saying, see, the game's selling well. People are playing it. People are watching it. Maybe these trans people, what they're saying doesn't really matter. And like, it's not an opinion held by a lot of people. And their belief in general is not a good belief, right? Like that leap has been made by people I've seen on the internet, which is part of why it's like, well, I don't know what to tell you. Then don't play the game, because then it's like, that's the only way you as a person can withhold something, you know, withhold your money. Because you are, I don't know the financial tree, but the way I understand it, no single person is going to make more money off that game than her. So you are putting money into her hand, which sometimes it's cool. Like, I do think we need to make a Joanne exception for this kind of thing. Like, if you have a game that is problematic in a small way, or had a creator that made the game that is problematic, or was, you uncovered some tweet and we don't like him anymore, I think that's okay. I think streaming it is normal, unless that person has decided to make it their whole deal forever, right? Like, if the guy whose name Sakurai, just came out just anti-LGBT in general, right? That would be weird. And it would make the Super Smash Brothers games weird, because they really are the face of that company. However, if they had said something weird back in the past and they were like, I didn't mean it, that was weird to me, I think we'd all be okay. It is really just because she's decided she is going to be the person most known for this. And I think she is. Like, I think there's other people, Dave Chappelle, obviously there's people like Trump that are against this in a political sphere. But as far as an entertainer, as someone who you don't necessarily go to for politics, she's the main one. And it's deliberate. So, I don't think she deserves your money. B, I don't think she should be surprised by this. And C, if you play this game at home, don't talk about it, whatever, I don't care. I think, it's probably fine. It's not great, but it's fine. Like, again, just because of the Goblin thing. But beyond that, it's a weird, I find it a little strange to go further into that lore and that space. It would be like still watching Chappelle stuff and watching his new documentaries and stuff and being a real fan, following him around now. It's like, that he sucks. And there's so many other things. There's Percy Jackson. There's Willow. There's Artemis Fowl, which, the book's probably fine. There's the X-Men. There's so many other fandoms you can join. And also, Harry Potter's not that great. Like, it's just not. If you were saying Game of Thrones, I love Game of Thrones so much. I agree to some extent. It would be hard to replace that. I'm sure now it's a lot easier. But, like, it's kind of, it is understood to be prestige. And I understand that it's like you got a soft spot in your heart for Harry Potter because you loved it when you were a kid. So I don't think it's bad if you're still playing the game, but I do think, like, I don't know. Think about if you know a trans person, if you tell them about it, or if this is like a secret that you're keeping, because it's a little weird, right? Like, just a little weird. Again, I don't think it's bad. I don't think it makes you a bad person. However, for the streamers and people that are upset that they cannot play this game in public and, somewhat endorse the game and endorse the views of the person that made the world that the game takes place in, who is very active in the world the game takes place in and very active in the transphobia community, I think you deserve criticism. It's completely fair. You don't deserve, like, hate mail and stuff like that. But if people unsubscribe to you for that reason, that's fine. And I think that's part of it. You got to give something up. That's how it works, kind of. You can't be an ally and not do that. And I say ally. I don't really like the word ally. It's never been my favorite word. It's this weird, like, weight loss drug that gave everybody diarrhea. It's not that matters, but I do remember that as, like, something Colbert used to say that I thought was funny. And, like, it was just a funny Colbert bit that really stuck with me. But B, I think about it in terms of, like, war. You're for allies. And maybe that part of it is cool. But for me, I feel like that makes it seem more extreme. Where what we're really talking about is friends. If you want to be somebody's friend and they say, hey, I see you're playing that wizard game. The person who made it is very shitty to me. They are very mean to me. And, like, they want me to stop doing my thing, stop existing. I think it's a little bit of your responsibility as their friend to stop doing it. To take that into account. And I understand if the friend, the friend who is not you, goes, well, if you're going to keep playing it, I don't want to hang out with you anymore. I think that's fine. I mean, we all have that friend. We have friends. I feel like with friends, we all understand there's just way less important things that we just don't do because our friends don't want to, and you go on board, right? Like how about this? If you had a friend who worked at Starbucks and they were like protesting because of a union, they were doing a strike, and they're like, we really want people to stop drinking Starbucks coffee. And you got Starbucks coffee. It's like, hey, this is important to this person. Why are you doing that? Especially because there's like a million other places you can get coffee, including your house. But that's what you chose to do. So, hey, those are the consequences. It's the same thing with Harry Potter, I think, to some extent. And for people that made the game, I don't think it's their fault. And like, I don't think they're bad people for working on it. And I don't think we need to necessarily like punish them for working on this game. But I do think like they knew what they were getting into. I'm sure. This is not a secret. Joe has been at this for a while, very publicly. People have been talking about it publicly. So I feel like they should know, like, hey, I'm going to make this game. There may be some blowback, and that's not going to be great for me, but that is something that comes up, so I got to deal with that. I think that's fair. But I don't think, like, they should be blacklisted necessarily, because there's so many of them who are probably in situations where it's like, listen, this industry sucks, and I had to take a job, and this was the only job that was offering, and like I had to pay rent, I had to feed my family. More power to you. I guess for that person, I'd be like, at least I hope you get it. I hope you understand why people don't like the game and why they don't like Harry Potter in general. Don't just wash them all off as haters. This is my problem with haters. I remember when haters became a thing. And I understand the idea of like, man, there's so many haters out there. You just don't even listen to them, you know? That, sure. But also, if you have a lot of haters, maybe that's something you should check out. Maybe it's like, why do I have all these haters? It's like, oh, because of the thing I'm doing, right? The choices I'm making. I understand that. However, there's also some of that's not valid. And as an online video creator, of course, I know a lot of the times that's nonsense. But that's what I'll leave you with. I'll say, I understand why people play the game, and I don't think everybody that plays the game is bad. However, as a friend, if you wouldn't play this game in front of a trans person, then, I don't know, just like, think about that. That's weird, right? A little weird. This video is too long. YouTube likes that though sometimes. So it's like, what are you going to do? Also, I was going to do this video because I was going to do a video about Super Bowl trailers, but A, there's a bazillion of those. And B, here's my thoughts. The Flash trailer looks more interesting than I thought. Obviously, it has all the problems it came in with. But man, Keaton, here's the one moment that really got me when Keaton's batarang flung out. Like when he flicked out the batarang, I was like, I remember that. That's cool. The Guardians trailer is the best one. That movie's going to be the best. Fast and Furious trailer looks fine. It's way too long. Indiana Jones trailer, fine. Transformers trailer, fine. I don't think there were any others. There's no Ant-Man, and there's no Secret Invasion. Which, hey, Disney, are we making this show? Can you just tell us when it's coming out, or like what is going on with it? Just give me a month. That's all I want. April. Just put that on the website so I can know. Because it's gonna be something I think my channel is interested in. Not because of like the theories I'm gonna do during the show, but because if a certain person is a scroll, that is going to be interesting. So I was just expecting that. Also, the game was bad. It was good until the very end, and then it was bad. And I'm not just saying that as an Eagles fan, because I think I'm not really an Eagles fan. I'm in Philadelphia, so I appreciate the Eagles, and I want them to win, because I don't want my car to get flipped over. But also, I think as just a football fan, you'd be like, it's weird that they called that holding, because it wasn't holding. But because that was kind of a bummer, and the trailers weren't anything special, I was like, well, I'm going to make this video then. So, if you disagree, that's fine. If you unsubscribe because you disagree with me, that's fine too. That's the price of doing business. I don't know what to tell you. And if you agree with me, that's great. Everybody always likes being agreed with, so cannot argue with that. That's everything. Watch out for my Superman video. I have so much. Oh my God, do I have thoughts about Superman casting? You are not ready for my thoughts about Superman casting. And my Batman video, which will be out very soon on YouTube. But the other one will be on Nebula. So that one will be on YouTube probably end of the month. Beyond that, take care, everybody. I will see you around.